Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So today is September 26th. I know when you guys see this video, it'll be I think October 2nd, which means I'll be already 2 days into Inktober by the time that this video comes out. So I am not going to be working in the sketchbook for today because I do only have a certain amount of pages left in the sketchbook. You can see right here, still quite a few pages left, but I don't want to dedicate the rest of the sketchbook to be part of Inktober, partially because a lot of the ink mediums in here tend to bleed through or leave a lot of ghosting, which I do not really like because I like to use both the front and the back when I can. There is a little bit of ghosting here from the previous pages, and I know for like illustrations and drawings that you keep in your sketchbook, they don't have to look like super pristine or really nice looking, but for the sake of Inktober, I am going to try my best to do more or less like finished illustrations to a certain extent. But I found a sketchbook I got in 2020, and it's this really cute. It has strawberries, little peonies, or like blossom kind of flowers, cats, and then like strawberry milk curtains on it, and it's about the same size, about A5 size, but it's really thick, and it's not because it has a lot of pages. Well, it does, but it's mostly because it's has a lot thicker paper, because it's meant to be a watercolor sketchbook. And I got this from, I think their name is Me VA Art. I'll leave any of their socials in the description, or if they have a shop, I'll leave it in the description. I haven't used this too often because the paper is actually not my favorite, because I am a little bit particular when it comes to my watercolor paper. So I have a deluxe sticker in here. I don't know. This is like during 2020 when a lot of these were made, so they're gonna look super janky. So I've tried gouache in the sketchbook before, some watercolor, and you can see that it doesn't lay down the way that I really like it to. It might be just because I'm not applying it in a certain way, but I feel like the washes become very, I don't know, a little bit too textured for my liking, if anything. I did try doing inking. I believe this is done with a fine liner, and then I used a brush and did some I did some ink washes on top, but I knew I'm not gonna take as much care and time doing the washes super cleanly for every day, just because this is a little bit time consuming. So I was trying to test out a bunch of different ways for me to either apply washes or to test out ink. Something like this. So I'm going to be showing you guys this process for the rest of the video, and I'll talk a little bit more about the materials in the meantime. So I was digging around and I actually found my old Pentel Pocket Brush pen, and I haven't used it in a long time, and I think I know the reason why. So I'm not sure how well you guys can see that. So this is the Pentel Pocket Brush pen right here, and it's basically has these bristles at the very end, and usually it comes with 2 cartridges. So you can see there's a cartridge right here, but I think because when I was younger and I used to use this, because I used it during my uni days or just like right after high school, I was very inefficient lining with any kind of like brush because I don't really have a steady hand. I also am heavy-handed at the time. I feel like I've adjusted quite nicely since I've started doing more watercolor, even though sometimes I am still a little bit heavy-handed with something like this, where if you want thin lines, you should have a lighter hand. So these are my typical supplies, so I'm going to probably be using various colored lead. So I'm using mostly the Pilot Color ENO colored leads. This one's the one in red, and I have my kneaded eraser here just for the initial sketching portion. So I am planning probably to do most of the inking only with this brush. So hopefully this will be clear enough so I can give you guys a little bit closer of a look at the actual brush pin. Hopefully you guys can see that. But also in here is your ink cartridge. So you can see it says Pentel on it. And there's like ink in this reservoir that you can just pop out and refill if you need to. And I highly recommend that if you own something like this and you own some kind of ink that you really enjoy, just refill your cartridge with that ink. And if you feel like it's kind of dispensing too watery or too light, just give this a light squeeze so that you can get the kind of ink in this reservoir touching this actual part of where the ink actually flows into the bristles. Because when I was using this particular pen and I just like freshly refilled it with some ink. And this is the ink I was using at the time, so it's just Chinese black ink. So I'm not sure how well you guys can see this, but this is actually fairly like more of a dark gray rather than a black. And even though I switched the ink in here to be that Chinese black ink, it was dispensing more of that gray. So I did have to squeeze the cartridge to allow the ink to flow properly. So this is kind of the comparison. So if we have this as our gray color, this is how dark it should be. If we can get this going. So there's quite a bit of a difference here. Yeah, it's kind of a nice, fairly dark black color. I am not the most proficient with like an inking pen like this or a brush pen, so I do apologize. But you can see this has a very flexible brush tip. So we can get some thin lines like this. I'm gonna have to kind of teach myself how to be a little bit more mindful of how much pressure I'm actually using. So now you can see it's getting a little dry if I go a little bit too fast. But if I go slow, you can get a nice matte black kind of fully covered area. And this paper does have a bit of that texture. It kind of has like vertical lines like this for the texture of the watercolor paper. So there are going to be some areas where it's going to peep through a little bit if I use more of a faster stroke, and it gets a little bit more of that kind of like calligraphy look where you can kind of get that dry brush effect at the very end. So can you guys see how fine these lines are? So if I show you guys with a mechanical pencil, and this is 0.5, oopsies, 0.5. You can actually see that these ink lines are actually smaller than my 0.5 lead. So I can kind of get like a hairline line like this. We can actually go a lot darker and kind of do our flats with that. I'm gonna treat Inktober this year, I think, just me learning how to be a little bit more mindful with the way how I do inking, as well as kind of like practicing my hand using something like a brush pen, because you know how much I dislike inking or line work in general, so hopefully maybe this will give me a little bit more love towards that, and then maybe I can incorporate it into future artwork, maybe. I should have probably properly segued into this portion, but I am going to be showing you guys kind of snippets of the inking process. Now, according to my recorded video footage time, this took about, I think, 37 minutes, and I feel like this would have gotten done a lot quicker if I actually squeezed the cartridge beforehand. So if you guys can't see that well of what I'm inking, so I do have a sketch of Wonu, or someone based roughly of Wonu, and then I have a little bit of flowers in the background just to give myself a little bit of inking practice. But you can see that the first few lines up until like a good portion of where Wonu is kind of almost completely inked, it's going to be quite faded and not very like an opaque black color, because I did not squeeze the cartridge and the ink was not dispensing into the actual, I don't know what you call it, it's like the little part that gets kind of shoved into the cartridge, and that part, I guess like the barrel or something that connects to the actual bristles and the hairs for the brush pen, we're not really getting a lot of the ink being like dispensed. So it was kind of doing a mixture of a little bit of like water residue from me cleaning out the pen earlier, and then a little bit of the ink kind of peeping through. So I kind of got a dark grayish color, but it was nowhere near opaque, and because of that I spent a lot of time going over certain areas over and over again if I wanted more of a flat color, or if I wanted to just like darken up the lines a little bit, because I did want to have a significant amount of black to white compared to the paper, just because I think it's a good balance. And I might, again, I'm kind of thinking if I want to do the prep maybe a little bit later today, but I want to do a little bit of thumbnailing and figure out a good composition for the first few days probably, so that I can get a good cycle going, so that I can kind of balance out the compositions based on the amount of white to black ratio because I do want to focus mostly on inking, and because I do have this brush pen that can allow me to do some like larger washes, it would be nice if I could either like block in a little bit of the background, or if I want to do his hair completely black or something like that. So I've been kind of deliberating as I was editing the majority of this footage before I did the voiceover, whether or not I was gonna do an OC with the flowers, or like, you know, make a new character, or even draw Maseki or that unnamed black-haired girl that I have for these Inktober prompts. But I might ultimately end up just drawing variations of Wonu with the flowers. Now, the reason being is that when I woke up this morning, one of my online friends was sending me photos of, I think, like a recent collaboration post that Wonu had with Huxley, and he's just simply wearing like a white dress shirt, dark pants, he has his glasses on, and he has like almost a, how do you like comma hairstyle, I guess. It's a very cute hairstyle, and I always love when he styles his hair like this because there's a little bit of texture, it's a little wavy. I like when his hair is down because I always think that it gives him a little bit of a softer look. But I feel like because his shirt will be white and his hair will be black, it gives me already a good kind of balance of how I want to section things off. And oftentimes I feel like the flowers, if I can correctly draw them with the inking pen, brush pen, yeah, let's call it a brush pen because that's what it is, I might be able to like play around with the textures in a way against the white shirt. Now, hopefully I won't be doing just a bunch of headshots. I would like to play around with the composition as much as I can. We can play around with poses, but I do want flowers to be somewhat present. And like I mentioned, if I end up doing like a prompt list, I will put that into the community tab for you guys to have reference if you like to. I might even post it to I think to Instagram probably, and then I'll just delete the post at the end of Inktober. I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm low-key excited but not excited at the same time because I'm a person that is very much like a person of habit, so incorporating Inktober at the end of every night might throw me into a loop for a little bit. And I do know that at the end of October I will also have to attend a concert with my friends because we booked tickets, and I'm excited to go to that. It is a K-pop artist that I really enjoy, but I don't know, I don't remember what time that is, and I'm planning to do a majority of these Inktober drawings at the night portion. Oh, by the way, at this point in the kind of like inking process, I've already kind of like squeezed the cartridge a little bit, so now the ink is actually dispensing properly, and you can see that I'm getting a little bit more of that matte black or like flat black look for the inking because it's no longer dispensing this weird amount of like a little bit of ink with some water in it where it's kind of very patchy and I have to do several passes. I can actually just do one line or one pass of the ink and I don't have to go over and over again just to make it look flat. So yeah, like I said, if I had that in the very beginning, this probably would have cut down the amount of time that I would have spent on the inking process. Even though like I feel like it's a good reminder to everybody that everyone draws or inks or paints or whatever process you're working on or doing at their own pace, because part of it's going to be experience, part of it's going to be your own habits or your familiarity with the medium or whatever you're working with will help increase or decrease speed kind of with whatever you're working with. So I don't think speed's like very important here. Just spend as much time or as little time as you want on each of the prompts or like whatever you have time to do that day. For me, I'm going to try my best to keep things consistent, not time-wise, but the amount of like energy I'm going to exert when I'm working on a piece. I don't want to work on a piece where I'm going to be like, I'm going to do 5 minutes because I want to go to sleep kind of thing. Obviously, I probably will prioritize sleep if I need to, but I tend to function well with little sleep, so I don't think it's going to be too awful. But yeah, consistency, I'm going to try my best just to build that habit. And hopefully this actually contributes more to me working in my sketchbook at night every day or every night before I sleep, because that used to be a habit I used to have and I haven't been doing it. And I know the reason why. But I still want to like end the day with a little bit of sketching if I can, even if it's just like 5-10 minutes, because part of it's like I like being able to draw in my sketchbook and then, you know, wake up the next morning and be like, oh, what did I draw? Because sometimes I feel like I don't have recollection of it. But also it's just like slowly filling up a sketchbook of, you know, something that maybe happened that day, or something that reminds me of something that I'm excited about, or just like, you know, just things you're interested in. It's just kind of like a little mini log for yourself, which is something I really like. And I do treat my sketchbook in a way that I do draw out things that I like and kind of use it as a place where I draw for fun, I draw for kind of like comfort, and kind of to ease a little bit of my anxieties here and there whenever I do have bouts of that. But back to the inking a little bit. So I am placing a lot more darker areas. Like I said, Wano's shirt is actually supposed to be like pure white. It's just like normal white dress shirt, but I'm adding more intense shadows. I'm also going to play around with texture where I can, because this ink is now dispensing properly. I do like the dry brush effect that you can get. So I did want to place him a little bit against the dark black, kind of like a dark black background, but I was scared of putting too much dark everywhere, and I didn't really want to lose the delicate lines that I had for the stems of the flowers too much, so I didn't really do the black all the way up until there. So I kind of just went around him a little bit, and kind of like it became a little bit more sparse as we got closer and closer to the flowers and towards the edges, because I didn't want it to overtake the entire piece entirely, because, you know, I don't want it to be overwhelmingly just one kind of block of black versus the amount of white that I have. So hopefully when I'm actually working on the prompts, I will be attempting to ink some portions with a little bit more interesting lighting, maybe. We'll see, because I would like to have that contrast somewhere. Also, I am going back in to fix up certain parts that were a little bit too faded, and I'm kind of going over it again so that they can read a little bit more punchy. You can see a lot of places in the hair still have very much like a patchy look, but I'm not going to go back and fix them at this point because I am treating this one more like a practice. But I think I also said that because I'm sketching with the palette Color ENO, I am going to embellish some of the drawings probably a little bit with the palette Color ENO as well. For now, I think I'm going to stick with the red. I might switch to purple or blue or pink in the future, or even green, depending on the flower prompt, but I would like to not give myself too much of a selection of color, because sometimes if I do that, I pick too many colors or pick just like, you know, 2 or 3 where I feel like I should have just colored the whole thing. So I think I'm just gonna leave it kind of monochromatic and just do the one color to help soften the drawing a little bit. So I'm adding a little bit of a touch of red to his nose, his mouth, inside the eyes, so like his irises. I'm also adding a little bit of blush. I'm adding a little bit of shadows under the hair and the neck and the ears, a little bit to the flowers, and I think that's it. Because like I said, I want the majority of it to be mostly black and white anyways, so there's no point of me coloring every white area with the red. I'm gonna try my best to leave a lot of it just as the pure white of the page if I can. So I think for the rest of the video, other than me showing like close-ups and just like, I don't know, I feel like at some point I show that there is no bleed through from this ink, so I am going to do the prompts for every day on one page. So we'll do the left side, the right side, left side, right side, starting from day 1 all the way down to day 31 kind of thing. And yeah, I think that's about it. So hopefully for some other sessions I will be recording them so you can see them next Monday potentially, and it might be a mini compilation. But for the rest of the video, other than me showing that there's no ghosting or anything because this paper is nice and thick, I will leave a time-lapse version of the entire inking section just because today's little video was kind of chopped up footage. So I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye!